investigation run its course.
All right. Well, in the interests of, I suppose, conformity and everyone having a common standard, Kate, what do you think the common standard should be? Let's start talking about on the government side of the House. We can talk about oppositions in a moment if you wish, but what should be the standard when a police investigation is held into a minister? What should become of that minister?
Well, the government has its own standards. They have, in fact, their ministerial accountability, and they're not living up to it. And they're not living up to the accountability that the Australian people expect through our parliament. As you said, Greg, we're both new. I've been talking to people who've been here a lot longer, and they tell me that in past parliaments, the debate would always have happened. And yet this government is running scared from the debate. They don't want to face up to parliamentary scrutiny, and that's what we're seeing play out.
Well, when you talk about running scared from debate, I mean, I was just in the chamber just a few minutes ago, and we had the Labor Party shut down debate on a veteran, Phil Thompson, who was talking in the House about veteran suicide, and they shut it down as a political tactic. And this is the shameful distraction game that they're trying to play.
Now, the debate you're asking for, Kate, would involve you getting the numbers or the government agreeing to it. Now, you don't have the former, or you failed on multiple occasions in the last 24 hours or so to try to suspend the rules. What else can or should be done here?
We don't have the numbers, and that's why we are using the options that are available to us to draw attention to this fact that the government won't stand up to parliamentary scrutiny. And I think this goes to the character of the Prime Minister. We see this time and time after again with him. When he's called out to explain, when the media, when the Parliament ask him to explain, he ducks and weaves that scrutiny. So he won't come into the chamber and explain why he misled the chamber. And that is important. It is important for our democracy that that chamber is a house in which the Prime Minister and the government are held under scrutiny.
Is that too much to ask? Not by Kate and the Labor Party, but by the nation, that a Prime Minister does front in an important chamber like the Parliament and actually explain and even say sorry if you make a mistake. Is that too much to ask, Julian?
Look, I think the Prime Minister's been asked this question down this path a number of times as I've been sitting in the Parliament. I've seen him answer it, and Labor just don't want to listen to the answer. Now, the Prime Minister has
misled the Parliament,
well,
and he has refused to explain that to the Parliament.
Well, that's not true. The Prime Minister has corrected that to the Parliament
in writing, I think.
Correct, which is the standard parliamentary process that Labor have used time and time again, and I'm sure we'll see that him continue to explain that during question time.
All right, and you will both be there to witness it again today and probably next week at this rate. Let's switch to Medivac in our limited time remaining today. Jackie Lambie is being coy about her vote, but she appears to be in serious negotiation about giving the government the right to repeal this on some sort of national security grounds. Is that the way to do government in this country, to be negotiating national security elements in secret with a crossbencher?
Look, this is an important piece of legislation to repeal. It was born out of an alliance between Greens and Labor, which weakened our border security laws. But we don't do deals on national security. What we'll be doing is we talk to crossbenchers on every piece of legislation. Suggestions that are made, we look at them on their merits, but we'll decide whether it's in the best interests of Australia and our strong border security.
Do you take that as a given, Kate, that national security, whether it be for the coalition or a Labor government, shouldn't be a bargaining chip for a vote in the Parliament? Or do you have suspicions about that in the Jackie Lambie case?
Well, I actually disagree with the fact that the government's trying to put this legislation as a case of national security. This legislation is actually about whether sick people can get medical attention. So I don't actually think it's a question of national security. It is up to the government, obviously, to negotiate on this bill, but Labor's position is very clear. We think the Medivac laws need to stand.
I think her bargaining chip, now this is only according to media reports, we're not vouching for it, but this national security bargaining chip is reported to be asking the government to entertain the New Zealand settlement option. Would that, from Labor's point of view, would that be a bad result if it took the repeal of this bill and a deal with Jackie Lambie to actually open the door in New Zealand?
Look, again, I'm not party to negotiations between Jackie Lambie and the government. As I said, Labor is very clear that we do support the Medivac legislation. We think it's been working as it should to make sure that doctors are making the decision about sick people.
What would your own feeling be, Julian, if that scenario I outlined were to come to pass because of negotiations? Good result, bad result? You get rid of Medivac, but you also have this other element.
Well, I accept that the Medivac legislation is working to do what the Labor Party wanted it to do, but what's that that's doing is bring people into the country who are unfit and unsuitable to be in this country, and we want to close that particular loophole. So that's what the important outcome that the government is trying to ensure to maintain our strong border security, and that's the outcome we want to achieve in any negotiations.
All right. Now, possibly by tonight, depends. The Senate moves at its own pace.
It does.
Kate,
Yeah.
ensuring integrity, it's a hot topic of debate, has been for hour upon hour now in the Senate. Let's go ahead and assume it gets through. Every indication is that it will. How does Labor fight on that post its passing in the Parliament?
Greg, earlier this week I met with union members here in Parliament. Now, they were disability support workers, they were healthcare workers, nurses. These are the people this bill will affect. These are the people who turn to their union for support with their wages, with their working conditions, to make sure that the place they're working in is safe. Now, they're the people who are being threatened. So it is really worrying that this legislation may pass, and we will have to look at how we best support our unions, but it's very, very concerning for the future of workers like that.
So because of those allegiances and relationships you just mentioned, some ongoing campaign we would expect from Labor and the unions, work choices style?
Well, and I think it's not about allegiances. Again, these are about people who are really important to our community. They are, the people that we all turn to and rely on.
Yep.
And if they don't have safe workplaces and good conditions to work in, that's not the sort of society I want to be part of.